Yeah. Well, beautifully said. I think there's a lot to get into. Let me wind back a little bit with this idea of uni and wisdom, and the one that knows, as in the etymology of the shaman. Maybe you and your listeners are familiar with Maria Sabina. She was a Mazatec sabia, and this is an interesting word, right? One who knows as well. Often when people talk about her, she'll be considered a medicine woman or like a curandera. But in some of the literature that I encountered, she was actually, and I've actually met some people that have like spent some time with their son, and they reflected this as well. Um, that she was actually not enjoying being called a curandera, like a healer, but like that's why her name was Maria Sabia, because she liked to be referred to as a Sabia, somebody that knows, right? And regarding the plants and the fungi as well, not coming from this earth, I do think that earth medicine is good because maybe the spirits are from a different reality, but like it grows from the earth, right? And also the toads and the frogs and reindeer, all the other animal medicine carriers, they also live of the earth. So although we have perhaps a connection to something extraterrestrial or like another dimension, we still, the bodies that we inhabit right now are definitely in a deep, deep connection to the earth. Um, yeah, there's so much I can get into regarding the mushrooms, right? So the mushrooms, there's actually a recent study that showcased they did like a large genetical analysis, basically from all over, and they like, I don't know how they do this. This is pretty hardcore science, but they look at like these gene patterns through like basically the whole kingdom of fungi. And then they try to backtrack kind of when these genes originated. So they found that the gene that is connected to producing psilocybin and psilocin and baeocystin, since we're talking about wording, maybe later we can go into why I'm not necessarily fond of the word psilocybin mushrooms, but like they produce these alkaloids. That is correct. But this gene has now been traced back to over 65 million years ago. So this is about the same time that the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs came around the scene, right? So this is a very long time ago. And you could perhaps argue that since I do believe that fungi are very intelligent, that they saw that like, okay, now the dinosaurs have kind of been wiped from all of their niches that they were dominating for like hundreds of millions of years, ecological niches. They might have seen that like the newts or the shrews that were coming up that perhaps had a higher potential for connecting to these alkaloids that they were producing. So maybe they foresaw that eventually a primate-like ancestor of us would come on the scene that then eventually would eat these mushrooms with those alkaloids and very Mechanian, like go and consume these on a frequent basis and perhaps have conversations with the spirit of the mushroom. And then because of those conversations, to an extent, get thought language. This is kind of the main idea of the stoned ape theory now, because, okay, so there's a lot of that we can get into, right? And I don't want to get too in the details, but the base idea is that the stoned ape theory, there's some good videos on YouTube. I've collaborated with After School, and there's one that Paul Stamets that goes into it pretty well. You should go check that out. Just like look up stoned ape or something on YouTube to get the full gist. But our ancestors most likely or perhaps consumed psilocybe mushrooms containing psilocybin, psilocin, baeocystin, and all these other alkaloids. And somehow, because of that, our brains grew like in rapid size in a relatively short time. Now, recently, I think it was the end of 2023, it has been showcased by one study that was done in the UK, that the stimulation of the 5-HT2A receptor, the serotonin 2A receptor, which is where these psychedelics, these substances, these technologies make connection in our brain and create these mind-altering effects, had something to do with the rapid increase of our brain size. So the stimulation of the receptor that we know that psychedelics and other substances stimulate is now shown to have a correlation with like the massive increase in our brain size. So that's interesting to look at. And I think it has to do with language. But like what a lot of people that work with these organisms also to an extent have a relation with, very much like you were saying with the teachings of the Amazon, is that a lot of people feel like that they are from a different planet, from a different place. And that's a whole field of study. There's like there's a journal called Astrobiology, which is really cool if you're into that kind of stuff. But there's pretty solid evidence that one of the ways that life perhaps could have kickstarted here on Earth is because of spores traveling through outer space and landing on our planet.